I'm Matthew from Patchwerks, and today I'm really excited to introduce the Syntakt, Elektron's newest drum machine and synthesizer. The Syntakt kind of sits in a special place. It uses some of the classic engines from the analog rhythm and improves upon them, and takes some of the engines from the model cycles and expands them for some deeper sound design. But not just that, it has its own engines in it that are entirely new and you won't find anywhere else, including a workflow, Elektron improved workflow that you won't find on any other device except for the Syntakt. There's several new features in the Syntakt that you're not going to find in your Digitakt or Digitone, and perhaps one day those features will be added to the Digitakt and Digitone, but I'm going to go over them with you now. But before we do that, let's have a listen to the Syntakt. So as you can see, you can cover a lot of territory in the Syntakt. It's pretty incredible and it sounds fantastic. The Syntakt is a 12-track drum machine and synthesizer, as I mentioned. 8 tracks are digital. You'll find those 8 tracks here on the top. And then we have 4 analog tracks. This is an actual digital and analog hybrid synthesizer. These 4 tracks down here are analog tracks, and this is where you're going to find your analog engines, and there are a ton of them. Now, this last track, track 12, has some special engines. They're symbol engines that you'll only find on track 12. Otherwise, with these digital tracks, you can use any engine on any track, and that's why they're not named anything, unlike the Digitakt, which named their tracks kick, snare, hi-hat. This implies that you can do anything on the tracks, right? Now, that's pretty special and very cool, and as you just heard, it sounds fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the box. We have 2 balanced outputs, left and right, stereo, along with a phone's output. Then we have a left and right input, which runs into the internal mixer, which you can find by holding function and hitting LFO 3 times. This is your mixer section. You can run the incoming audio into the Syntakt's effects, its reverb and delay, which are fantastic and stereo. And you can also process it through its analog filter. Now check this out. Holding function and hitting the FX button brings up the analog effects processor. So here's where you get to select what tracks go into it, whether your effects run through the analog processor or the incoming audio runs through the analog processor. Just totally incredible. And it's an analog filter with analog overdrive. So just awesome features. And you'll know that this is analog, not just by the sound, but it's actually a pretty warm box, which I think is great. I like feeling that and knowing that, yeah, it really is cooking. So to go back to talking about the ports here, we have MIDI in, MIDI out, MIDI through, USB, which is class compliant USB, class compliant audio, but also allows you to connect to Overbridge. Yes, it has its own Overbridge VST, and to connect to Elektron Transfer for transferring sysx files and uploading presets and what have you. So just a wonderful box, very familiar. We like these squares. I know I do. The Digitakt and the Digitone did not disappoint. They're some of my personal favorite boxes, and we all love them here at Patchwerks. Let me just show you a little bit about how it works, and we'll audition some of these engines. I'm going to go to a blank track, so I'm going to go to Bank 11. I'm going to go to Bank C, Pattern 1. There's nothing on it, and I'm just going to audition the default sounds for the track here. All right, really great. So this is a great sounding kit to start you off with. If I just throw down a couple of triggers, we'll get something really simple going so that I don't have to think too hard while I'm doing this. We can hear kind of how it sounds just with the default sounds. So this is a digital kick drum. Could copy this. Let's try it on the analog kick drum. All right. Here's that analog kick drum engine. All right, let's go ahead and throw a snare down. Let's use a digital snare. And of course we have trig conditions and everything you would expect from the Elektron sequencer. Make this snare only play every second time it passes. Awesome. Let's add some hi-hats. Let's go over to that analog cymbal engine. Check that out. Let's close that hat. Fan it over a little bit. Let's go over to another hat. I think there's one here. We're already getting somewhere. I love it. All right, let's add a bass line to this. I'm going to use the dual VCO. The dual VCO is something from the analog rhythm, and it was something everyone was very excited about when it came out on the analog rhythm, that we had this new oscillator, this new analog synthesizer on the analog rhythm. Well, now we have it on the Syntakt, but it's even better here because we have the newer effects from Elektron, plus we have another filter, and we have some other crazy features that I'm going to get into in just a moment. Let's just throw down a bass line, but let's talk about one of those new features. How about a keyboard? Hold function, hit track. Let's go into our keyboard. Well, that's pretty classic and what you would expect from the Elektron keyboard. But wait, there's more. If I hold function and hold down track, we go into our keyboard mode. Now I can have a quantized keyboard. It doesn't need to be chromatic. There's Ionian for your major scales, Dorian for your minor scales. Let's leave it on Dorian. Here we are in a minor Dorian scale. Even cooler than this is, how about 2 octaves of just these notes? Let's turn on keyboard fold. There we go. Now we can do this with any scale all the time, and this keyboard fold just makes the workflow incredibly fast. Again, this is an analog engine with an analog filter. For the analog engines, you're going to find 1 filter per engine, but on the digital engines, you'll find 2, and in some of the synth voices, even a 3rd. So pretty incredible, and a lot of room for some super deep sound design. I've made a couple of tracks on the Syntakt already, and they are some of my favorites, and it happens so fast and organically. If I want to move these notes, hold function, press the left arrow there. Something to note when you're using the keyboard fold, if you want to add some accidentals to your melodic line that you've written, you can still use your parameter locking to move chromatically through your notes, which is great. So you can use your keyboard, get something that sounds fantastic and very easy and quickly, and then you can go ahead and add some accidentals in there to make it a more unique melodic experience, if you will. Hold function, hit the amp page to go into our reverb designer. Let's go into our delay and turn it into a ping pong delay. Make it real wide so it bounces from left to right very clearly. Maybe a little more feedback. There's that awesome delay you'll find in the Elektron boxes. So cool. All right, I'm gonna go over to one of the digital engines and add a chord. Holding track, I'm gonna select track 6, there it is. Track 6 by default has the chord engine on it. I'm gonna go into the synth page here where I can change the chord's quality. I'm just gonna make it a minor chord, or maybe a minor 6. There's a lot of chords in here to choose from. There's my minor 6. Cool. This balance is going to move through the wavetable because the chord synthesizer is a wavetable. All right, let's just put down a C note. It should be good to go. That minor 7 flat 5 actually sounds better than that minor 6. So as you can see, there's a lot of possibilities so far, but let's look at some of the new features that you'll find only on the Syntakt and not any other Elektron box yet. Elektron has made a unique way to enter trig information or steps in your sequencer. The first one here is retrigger. So if I hold function, press the up button, I go into my retrigger setup. If I hold function, I can select between these 4 different special ways of entering trigger information. So for retrigger, it's already set up for you by default at 8, 1/16, 1/24, and 32nd notes. Let me just show you what that sounds like. I'll find a sound that's a little easier to hear it. So check it out. So you can also record that information into your sequence, which is fantastic and a lot of fun to do, but also a good tool for live performance. This can actually act as a drum fill for you rather than using the fill condition in your sequence. Let's check out the other way of entering note information or trigger information. Holding function, I select velocity. Here's my different velocity depths. Let's make it real obvious for you. And again, you can use this as a way to enter into your sequence. There's a couple of ways of entering notes in your sequence. You can live record. You can just go into your sequencer and place notes down. You can hold record and hit stop. You'll go into your step recording. You can hold record and hit stop again quickly, and you go into the jump version of step recording. So the step recording allows you to select a step, hold function, and then if you're in keyboard mode, you can bring up your keyboard here, and it will just immediately move to the next note. When you're in the jump version of it, your trigger length determines where that next note is going to pop up. So if you have your trigger length at 4, it's going to move 4 steps before it pops up on the next step, and you can enter your note information there. So incredibly deep device so far, right? Let's have a look at the effects track. Holding function, we can go into our effects track, and here's where we can route things into the effects engine, which is its own track and allows you to parameter lock things like the delay time or the reverb decay or what kind of filter you have on your reverb, all sorts of things. It also has envelopes, inverted envelopes, controlling your filter. You can do sidechain pumping if you'd like. It's actually pretty simple to set up, and we'll probably have some tutorials on that a little bit later in the future. But first, let's just run this all through the analog filter so you can hear how good the filter sounds on the Syntakt. I'm going to select all the tracks, except for the effects. We'll leave the effects dry. I'm going to go into the filter here. There's more filter types on this engine, or on the effects engine, than there is on anything else. So you're going to find the most unique filters, such as low pass with a notch. Let me just show you. So here's our filter types. There's bandpass, high pass, notch, low pass slope, peak filter, high pass with a slope, off, let's just look at the low pass real quick. Let just run it all through the filter so that you can get an idea of how great this filter sounds. Pretty cool, pretty simple. You can do that with a high pass too. A nice performative feature for an Elektron box. So we can also run the entire performance, because we selected all those tracks in the effects menu, into the delay and the reverb. It's pretty incredible. So what's so cool about this is that to do that effect, you used to have to use Control-All. You would hold track and then go into your amp menu and turn up your reverb or delay, and it would turn up the reverb or delay on every single one of your tracks. And that was a nice little performance trick that you could do if you were just using the Digitac or even with another piece of gear. But now we can be in the effects track and just do that here. So we could do a temporary save by saying function yes, saving it to a temporary area, and then we can do that. Use it as a build-up, hit function no, and revert back to where we were. Which is a similar method to what we would do using the Control-All feature, but now we don't have to Control-All, we can play in here. So as you can tell, this envelope is inverted. That's something new and something you wouldn't find in any of the other Elektron boxes yet. So we can go into our secondary amp page here, and we get these different modes for our envelope generator. So we have attack, decay, sustain, release envelope, so your classic ADSR for making synth voices. We have an attack, hold, decay, which is more for making drum sounds or percussive noises. And then we have an inverted attack, hold, decay for making rhythmic volume changes or filter changes. Just incredible. I'm very excited about this box. And you also find 2 LFOs in the effects track too, so you can make your own custom reverbs or delays. Bananas. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this presentation on the Elektron Syntakt. This box is incredible. Come down to Patchwerks in Wallingford on Stone Way, come say hi, and check out the Syntakt.